Go. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for coming out, everybody. We have as our guest of honor today, Blake Scholl, CEO and founder of Boom Supersonic. I'll give you a little background on Blake, and then I think we'll just do story time. Blake's got a bunch of great stories that we'll just kind of walk through. So quick background on Blake. He is originally from Cincinnati. Fun fact, he never graduated from high school. He's a high school dropout. He was accepted to Carnegie Mellon a year early, and I think he graduated from Carnegie Mellon early as well, right? Yeah, and he went to Amazon when he was a year early out of Carnegie Mellon and was there very early, and was one of the early people on paid customer acquisition on the internet. Was one of the pioneers in that space and turned that into a huge deal for Amazon. There in the late 90s through the early 2000s. Left, started a company. That company was later acquired by Groupon, where he was a VP. And then he left Groupon to start Boom. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So did I miss anything?
You skipped over a couple important things. That we went to high school together.
Yeah, I've known Blake forever. Blake's one of my oldest friends.
And Avichal was my intern at Amazon.
I was going to ask you who your favorite intern ever was. I was going to tee that up for you. Yeah, Blake and I go way, way back. So thanks again for doing this. It's great to see you.
Happy to be here.
So maybe we can just start with the basics. Like, what is Boom? How did Boom happen? Just give us the backstory.
What is Boom? So we're building supersonic passenger airplanes that way more people can afford to fly on than ever. So think here to Tokyo in 5.5 hours instead of the 11 it takes today. So if you've got a Monday morning meeting in Tokyo, instead of having to leave Saturday, you can leave Sunday and sleep in your own bed the night before you have to go. So the long-range vision is to remove the barriers to experiencing the planet and let you live on Earth the way you say you live in a city. And that'll keep us busy for a long, long time. And I hope that 100 years from now, our successors are working on the 150 millisecond transporter because it's actually way better than the 300 millisecond transporter. And if you stop and think about it, it really is way better at 150 milliseconds.
That's hilarious. You actually have this great stat around travel to Hawaii when the jet plane happened, which might, I think, be relevant here for people to sort of conceptualize what it means to actually be able to travel twice as fast.
Yeah. So I think all the most interesting innovations in technology have their most significant effects on the second order. And so if you think about the smartphone, when Steve Jobs stood on stage in 2007 and introduced the iPhone, no one would have said, well, the real thing that's going to happen because of this is this ownership model of cars will ship to fleets, and that'll enable Uber and Lyft and eventually push towards self-driving. And no one predicts that. And crypto will be the same story. The second order effects will probably dominate. And you see it in the history of aviation as well. So in the in the days before jets, a flight from San Francisco to Hawaii would take about 16 hours. And people would be like, oh, 16 hours? Let's go to Napa. And then in the first 10 years of the jet age, when those flights shrank from 16 hours to more like the 6 or 7 that it is today, travel to Hawaii went up sixfold. And it kept on growing for the next few decades as people started to build hotels and resorts and tourist attractions now geared around Hawaii being more accessible.
Yeah, and this is one of those, you see this in popular culture too, right? In the 50s, like the Brady Bunch, that era of television, you would have episodes in Hawaii because going to Hawaii was this exotic, far-off place that most people would never be able to experience, and you sort of saw the decline of that through the 70s and the 80s when it just wasn't so crazy to be able to go to Hawaii. Mm-hmm. So how did Boom actually happen? Did you just wake up one day and say, I'm going to build a plane?
So truth be told, Avichal was the very first person on the planet who told me this was not a bad idea. So thank you for that. But in a way, the story goes back to 2007. So the year the iPhone came out, and I think it was October of that year. The girl I was dating at the time was stuck on one of these horrifically delayed flights, 3 hours late. And while I'm sitting there waiting for her, I started wondering whatever happened to high-speed flight. And so I Google it. I still have this rant I wrote about how much life would be better if we could only seen each other at Mach 2. And I put a Google alert on Supersonic Jet that day because I wanted to be first to know when I could go bust the sound barrier. And it was 10 years of crickets. No credible effort to build something I could ever see myself or my friends and family and loved ones flying on. And meanwhile, kind of had the second half of my internet career and started a company and sold it to Groupon. And there's nothing like working on internet coupons. to make you yearn to work on something you love. But the Groupon acquisition money became the seed capital for Boom down the road. And so about 5 years ago, I quit Groupon and started thinking, there's no such thing as an easy startup. But you guys all know that. Like, it's freaking hard. And no matter what you pick, there's going to be tough times. And so I thought back to the decision to sell my first company to Groupon, which came down to the offer was worth more than like the pain I was going to go through to keep the company going, because I just didn't believe enough in what we were doing.